You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network. I am your host, Skyler Timmons, joined here once again, celebrating a Broncos victory. It's Evan Lang.
We are the most fraudulent 7-2 team ever, but a 7-2 team nonetheless. Yeah.
Win's a win.
For 3.5 quarters every week, Sean Payton makes me want to rip my hair out of my head and scream, and then we win.
Hey, a win's a win. That'll do it.
That is true. Are we comfortably atop our division right now?
I guess.
Either way, 7-2, not bad at all.
Need to start beating people within the division, but
is that right? Are we 7-2 or 6-2?
7-2.
7-2.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we're 0-1 in division. So yeah, we need to start winning in division.
We've only played the one division game so far.
Yeah, and we lost it.
We did, to the Chargers, who are 6-3.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Broncos sitting pretty, and their trade deadline's coming up, so that'll be fun.
Don't ask me about the Packers game.
Okay, I won't. And then the Avalanche, they're not losing games per se, but they are.
They're walking away with points every game. They've only got the one loss in regulation so far, which on its face is great, but 0 for 5 in post-regulation games. 3 of those losses in overtime and 2 losses at the shootout. Not very good, and we lost a winnable game against not a terrible upstart San Jose Sharks squad, but a team that on paper we should pretty easily beat. And I look at what's going on in all of these losses, post-regulation or otherwise, and it's the Avs are getting tons of shots on goal. Like we had 40 shots on goal against the Sharks. But they're not quality shots on goal. They're not dangerous shots on goal. And it doesn't really matter how many shots on goal you have if the puck isn't going in the net. And honestly, the second goal that the Avs scored on that game against the Sharks was luck that it was considered a goal. Where, what's his name? Goodness. Knocked the net off of its moorings as the puck was being shot, and the puck still went in the net. That's That's a lucky goal.
Mm-hmm. But hey, they're still getting points. So, and hey, Marty Necas sticking around for 8 more years.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest news of the week for pretty much all Colorado sports. Marty Necas, Mr. Marty Nachos, the Marty Party, signing an 8-year, $11.5 million AAV extension to stay with the Colorado Avalanche. Martin Necas coming in the Mikko Rantanen trade where he originally went to the Carolina Hurricanes. Coming into this year, it's the final year on his current deal, and that was a big concern of if he was going to sign. And now he's locked down, and honestly, that's great. And he's looked really, really good this season.
And the fact that he's only 26, just you always forget that with some of these hockey players that they're actually still pretty young, and they just play forever.
Yeah. He's going to be 27 in January or something like that. And I understand that some people are, and I was a little bit, but overall this is a good move. A little bit frustrated because this is just slightly less than what we were allegedly offering Mikko Rantanen before he was traded. And it's slightly less than what he ended up signing for in Dallas. He signed at 8 years for $12 million AAV. And I get it, but ultimately I think this is a good move because, one, it's not our fault that the Canes chose to trade Miko to the Dallas Stars,
Yeah.
but also trading Miko at the time that we did allow the Avalanche to free up a lot of assets to make other moves, bringing in Brock Nelson, shoring up depth otherwise on the team that they've done a really good job with. And some of the moves didn't work out, Charlie Coyle didn't work out, but Brock Nelson is doing all right. Overall, the Avs have looked really good at even strength. And like you said, right now, Marty Natchez is only 26 years old versus Miko's going to be 30 here pretty soon. And I think overall, just the timing of it works out better. And it's nice that Marty wanted to stay here. Sounds like the negotiations went very well. Lots of Av reporters writing that the two parties, the Avs and Natchez's parties, were never really at odds with one another. They were both pretty determined on getting a deal done, which is really nice to hear. So, I'll take it.
Yeah. Good stuff. And hey, why wouldn't you want to play with Cale Makar and Gabe Landeskog and Nathan McKinnon and all them fellas? Why the heck not? So that's fun. And the Nuggets are doing
Here,
stuff. Yeah, the
it's
Nuggets exist and they're
it's
doing their
it's
things.
it's time for everybody's least favorite part of the NBA season, the worthless in-season tournament with garishly hideous courts, where the results really don't matter that much. The Avs lost to the Portland Trailblazers on a pretty ticky-tacky jump ball call that was pretty badly officiated, but the Portland Trailblazers haven't looked that bad to start the season, and it's interesting that they're not looking that bad when they no longer have a head coach that allegedly was throwing games.
Nuggets legend Chauncey Billups.
See you, Buffs legend Chauncey Billups.
But hey, yeah, we said it last time though, or said it before. It's just nice to have people coming off the bench to help, just in whatever way. Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., all them fellas. It's just nice, and hopefully the Nuggets can really get rolling here and stop having those kind of weird games like that they had in Portland. So
Yeah. My big thing is Jonas Valanciunas, where it's like having a backup big man that's actually making an impact off the bench, which is something that we've needed for years and never really had, has been very nice.
mm-hmm. Hey, Nuggets didn't do too bad putting those two guys in charge of the team. It's interesting what a good leader can do for an organization.
Yeah, and making difficult decisions, because remember, they fired the GM Calvin Booth and the head coach Mike Malone with 3 games left in the regular season,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a big shakeup move that a lot of people questioned. Where apparently there had been a lot of infighting, a lot of power struggles between the two parties, a lot of people having to sort of choose a side, and having Josh Kroenke, who is essentially the president and CEO of the team, make the decision of, all right, neither of you win this power struggle. You're both fired. It was a really interesting and potentially dangerous call to make that late in the season. And I think it's led us to a team that is ultimately going to be healthier, because sometimes you've got to make those difficult decisions. Looking at you, Rockies.
Hey, we'll touch on that, but they're learning. They're learning.
Are they?
Baby steps. We'll touch on it. But first, that's our Denver sports coverage. But also the Mammoth. If you follow the cross, they just keep trading a bunch of people, and who knows what they're doing. And also the Rapids fired their head coach. They mutually agreed to part ways. All that stuff, but I don't follow soccer, so.
And this is I think this is the second time they've fired a head coach or mutually agreed to part ways within the last season.
Good for them. But we do have to talk about the World Series.
We don't have to talk about it.
We have to, but we need. Yeah, we don't have to, but we kind of do, because we have no other topics to fill this episode with. But it's pretty pertinent. Where your 2025 World Series champions for the second year in a row, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Yay! Yes, the Dodgers go back-to-back. First team since 2000, Evan, since the New York Yankees, to win back-to-back championships in Major League Baseball. The first National League team since the Big Red Machine of the 70s, which is crazy. But they take down the Toronto Blue Jays in 7 games. Overall, not the ending we had hoped for, Evan.
Yeah. I think what's really frustrating about it is I loathe to admit it because the Dodgers are involved, but it was a pretty fantastic World Series. It
Yeah,
went to 7 games. It was exciting, lots of back and forth, lots of really cool storylines, even on the Dodgers side. You had that 18 inning game where, Will Klein, a guy who's been passed over and kicked around a little bit over his first few years of his professional career, ends up being the hero of the game. You've got, lots of interesting records being set. You had Yoshinobu Yamamoto doing things that we've never really seen before.
you had
And it
there's
was an incredible
controversy.
it was an incredible series.
Mm-hmm.
And, the two things that made it difficult were, let's be honest, in all 7 games, legitimately terrible umpiring. Lots of bad strike zones, lots of bad and confusing calls and controversies, and the fact that the Dodgers won.
Yeah, and I kind of chalk it up, Evan, because I saw like a reporter saying it probably was for for the Toronto Blue Jays or something. Like, I don't believe that the best team won this World Series, and I tend to agree with that because you look at the Dodgers, who performed in that World Series, honestly, with whose name was not Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, the
Who showed
Dodgers
up?
the Dodgers as a squad hit under 200, which is the lowest batting average for a World Series champion since 1918.
Ugh.
Um,
Since
yeah,
influenza was running rampant.
a lot of their key players, especially guys like Mookie Betts, were nowhere to be found. You had their starting center fielder be ostensibly benched halfway through the series because he had like 1 hit in the entire postseason. Their real hero on offense was like 36-year-old journeyman Miguel Rojas, who came in to provide a little bit of veteran leadership off of the bench and hit the difference making home run, or rather one of the difference making home runs in the series in game 7. And
Mhm.
overall, it's the Dodgers are a really good team. And their pitching was very, very good, especially Blake Snell, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki, but their offense was pretty bad.
It,
And it's frustrating because the Blue Jays offense was really good, but they just continually failed to capitalize on opportunities.
yeah.
You had some really bad mistakes that they made, including at the end of game 6. You had multiple bad double plays. They had the opportunity to take the walk-off win in game 7, only for Alejandro Kirk to ground into a double play, which was literally the only thing that couldn't happen.
Hmm. And that's kind of the point is like, it's not necessarily that the Dodgers won the World Series as much as it is the Blue Jays just lost it. And because, like you said, they had no clutch multiple times, back to back innings or innings there. It seemed like in that game 7, you get bases loaded, 1 out, guys in scoring position with 1 out, and then you know Isaiah Kiner Falefa gets thrown out at home on a forced play because a grounder to the second baseman Rojas. Also, did you see IKF's leadoff that he had at third base in that situation, Evan? The dude was like a step away from third base. Where the heck was the secondary? So those blunders and just no clutch at the plate where, yeah, a lot of good individual performances, guys with multiple hits.
Yeah.
But when it came down to it, in game 7, they were 1 for 17 with runners in scoring position.
Yeah.
Dodgers weren't great in scoring position either, but the difference was the Blue Jays.
Yeah. And you had twice in the series where George Springer got doubled off at first base because of something weird happening at home plate. Be either a delayed umpire call or not realizing that it was a strikeout. And then you have all the other issues. You have the injury issues where Bo Bichette was hitting very well in the World Series, but they had to take him out for Isaac Kiner Falefa, who is not a good hitter and not that great a base runner because Bo Bichette couldn't run.
Yeah, you
You
need
had
some speed on the bases.
a visibly hobbled George Springer who couldn't really run, but he could hit. But every time he swung the bat, he looked like he was about to keel over.
Yeah. So, yeah, they kept fighting tooth and nail, and you know the Dodgers had to rely on their very expensive starting rotation, where they could not trust their bullpen really at all most of the time. And oh well, but yeah, Yamamoto just was a beast in that series. My goodness.
Yeah, and
But he,
his willingness to, in that 18 inning game, he was prepared to go back out in, in game 7 after throwing 96 pitches the night before. He was ready to come out. But I also want to highlight Blue Jay starter Trey Savage, 22 years
yeah,
old, started the season in low A, also came out of the bullpen after throwing, earlier in this series and throwing a lot of pitches and pitched pretty well. Pitched
yeah,
2 innings, helped keep the Blue Jays in that game. One of the reasons why the game went as long as it did.
yeah, yeah. It came down to where the Dodgers has got the clutch hits when the Dodgers could not. And no, you feel bad as our feelings are pretty known about Jeff Hoffman, former Rocky, and his thoughts on the Rockies. No, not the biggest fan, but you do feel for him just coming in to close out game 7. You're 2 outs away. What was it? 2 outs? Yeah. There was 1 out in the ninth, and that's when you give up a home run to Miguel Rojas, who hadn't hit one since the middle of September, and just his second since the All-Star break. And he ends up hitting a game tying home run in the ninth with 1 out.
Yeah.
Like you feel bad for him because it sucks to see that
Y-
when you're so close, you can almost taste it, and it gets out of reach. You lose it.
Yeah. And honestly, I would say even the Dodgers didn't really have the clutch in them for this series. Both
Yeah,
of both of the difference-making hits were solo home runs late in the game. The first by Miguel Rojas and the second the game-winning home run by Will Smith. But, the Dodgers were 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. They left 10 runners stranded.
yeah. So yeah, a good, well fought battle, and it just makes me angrier, Evan, at like the Phillies, but especially the Brewers, who
Yeah.
just rolled over and died against the Dodgers. Because this is what happens. The Dodgers have to face like an actual like a good team. Like the Blue Jays were built very well, and had a lot of good traits that the Dodgers look like. Hey, struggle with. They stopped pitching to Shohei Ohtani a lot of the time in big situations, for trying to force the other guys in the lineup, and just kind of shows like during the regular season, the Rockies I wish the Rockies could rely on them. Dodgers became kind of like one trick ponies. You could see, okay, here's what they rely on. Here's how you can beat the Dodgers or put them on their back heel. It's, well, don't let their best guy, know, do damage against you.
Yeah. And it throws me back to when the Blue Jays were in town here in Colorado earlier in the season, and they thumped the Rockies like no team,
Thoroughly.
even the Dodgers, did this season. Like, yeah, the Dodgers beat up the Rockies because, of course, they did, but the Blue Jays hurt. Like, they stomped the Rockies. And I think that's part of why this World Series was as good as it was, is because it really did feel like at the end of the day, we were getting the two best teams in the league playing
Yeah.
against each other for the title.
Yeah.
And
Like,
just neither of them honestly played well enough, but it ended up being a really good World Series. And that's what makes it stink even more that the Dodgers won, because it was a great series. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it, but you walk away with a bad taste in your mouth because in our eyes, the bad guys won.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is not to call out Dodgers fans or anything like that. We're happy for you. Congratulations. It's calling out the Dodgers themselves that we don't like.
Yeah. But also, those fans cannot complain about anything now.
Yes, that was. I know we're running a little bit short on time, but that was one of the most infuriating parts of this whole postseason. Was a lot of Dodgers fans that I interacted with acting like their team was the scrappy underdog that everybody was counting out, that nobody believed in, and all this stuff. No, it's not that nobody believes in you. It's that nobody likes you. It's not that we're counting you out. It's that we actively don't want you to win.
Yeah.
That's not the same thing. You were never the scrappy underdog. You're the rich kid with unlimited resources. And you use those unlimited resources very well. Don't get me wrong. As we've said time and time again, the Dodgers use their basically infinite money and resources to invest in doing every single part of the baseball operations correctly. They do everything right. And that is why they are so good. But they have the infinite resources to do that.
Yeah, it boggles the mind how much money and who they're going to get this offseason.
Yeah.
I
Like,
wonder if they're going to try to spend big on, probably a big free agent outfielder that's going to be available. I
potentially more
wonder.
starting pitching.
There's no room. Are they just going to turn everybody into a reliever?
They've gotten an embarrassment of riches in their pitching staff right now. They do need to build on their bullpen staff, but credit where it's due. The Dodgers' pretty bad bullpen kind of locked it down in the World Series. They kept things from getting out of control, and they kept the Blue Jays from running away with it, which is what we kind of expected to happen in games where they did manage to drive the starters out early.
Yeah. Lousy Dodgers. When does it become a dynasty for any team?
I would say it already is. When you've won 3 World Series in 5 seasons, 6 seasons, whatever, then I would say it's
Yeah.
already a dynasty. When you are essentially winning your division every season, when you're basically expected to go to the World Series every season.
Yeah, but their division stinks.
I mean, no, the division's pretty good. It's just that the Rockies
Yeah, but compared
stink.
to the Dodgers, they stink.
I mean, a lot of teams compared to the Dodgers stink.
Yeah, but
You could put the Dodgers in any division in baseball, and I think they'd still have a pretty good shot to run away with the division.
yeah. It's just funny when they call it a dynasty because I think like a dynasty is still like, oh, they've been winning like every year for like 10 years type of thing. They're just constantly in the World Series. They're winning the World Series. I don't know. How
I
long
don't
does
think it
that?
has to be every year,
How many
because I
years?
think about the Patriots dynasty, and they won 6 rings in like a 20-year time span. Because, repeating championships is one of the hardest things to do in professional sports. And the Jays gave the Dodgers a run for their money, a run for their very sizable amount of money at the very least. But
Hmm. Yeah. I was trying to see how many years comprise of a dynasty. And it can vary. They can be short lived, they can be long lived. So there's the answer. Anyways, that's the Dodgers. Boo on them. Boo on them. But you kind of also failed us, Blue Jays. And
yeah,
that makes us sad.
the one thing I want to say again before we move on is just a very brief comment on the very much impending lockout coming in the 2027 season. Is a lot of people were going, it's up to the Blue Jays to beat the Dodgers and save baseball. And it's like, no, I don't think there was any situation where we are not going to have a lockout in 2027.
Yeah, but defeating the Dodgers' now, them winning kind of emphasizes more of the point of spending, spending, spending. And owners also are like, no, we need to like rein in spending, spending, spending. And so that was going to happen either way. So you
Yeah.
are correct. Anyways, we can only hope. We need Ewoks. Only the Ewoks can save us from the Dodgers.
Yub nub, Skyler.
Yep.
Yub nub.
Celebrate the love. Celebrate the love. Yub nub. Anyway, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it's now on to the Rockies GM search, the next reality show coming soon to Fox here on Affected by Altitude. Welcome back here to Affected by Altitude. Skyler and Evan. Dodgers may have won the World Series, but now that silly business is over, the real exciting news comes up next, Evan, of figuring out who's going to lead the Rockies. And the answer, it's this journey has been going on for about a month now. And still, who knows? You've heard us talk about candidates that have leaked to the public. The most recent ones we talked about, what was it, last week? Whatnot. I heard about them, or that they were pinpointed as finalists, and that they're going to interview them this past week. And then the decision for the Rockies could come in this coming week. Now, as the offseason has now started, then Jon Heyman, good old Jon Heyman, comes out dropping some news, pretty much saying like, they're pretty much kind of out of the running, and that the feeling was that there's other candidates, and it's just kind of unclear, just making sense of all these rumors and whatnot about the Rockies front office search. But Evan, make sense of this for me.
It's the whole search has been very weird because we've heard nothing from the Rockies themselves. It's all been, a leak according to The Athletic, or this according to this person. And, we had been drip fed little bits and pieces from outside sources. We originally had, here are 3 candidates that the Rockies really like. It's James Click, Scott Sharp, and Matt Foreman. And then it's Emil Sade and Matt Foreman. The Rockies liked Click and Sharp, but they're no longer in the running. And then it was, we're bringing these guys back for additional interviews, and we look to have a decision made or announced here within the next week. And then Jon Heyman this morning throws a big, huge wrench into everything. He reports, hearing that for now anyway, leading candidates Emil Sade and Matt Foreman might not be going to Colorado to become the Rockies baseball honcho. Unclear if they dropped out or where the Rocks might be headed next. And, Jon Heyman can be pretty hit or miss, but lending credence to his reporting was Rockies MLB.com beat writer Thomas Harding jumping in and going, good work from Jon Heyman. I hear talks with Emil Sade and Matt Foreman have been productive, but the search continues for a new Rockies baseball ops head. Sade and Foreman were publicly identified, but the feeling was there were other candidates. And then we got a post from Patrick Saunders, the Denver Post, very vague, lots of rumors about the Rockies search for a new head of front office. All I'm told is Rockies search for head of baseball ops continues. Then a few hours later, after we've all been sort of riled up by the fact of what are the Rockies doing? Why is this such a mess? What's going on? Patrick Saunders comes back and says, an excellent source tells me there is no truth to the rumors that the Rockies front office search has stalled and they might be looking for alternative candidates. However, this is all still incredibly vague because we have no confirmation from the team on anything.
Yeah.
And this would be a lot less of a mess if the Rockies were not so gosh darn secretive and would just keep us in the loop a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah, and again, so it's a lot of this, these reporters being, cagey and not having all the facts, which is a problem in sports journalism in general. It's just not this with the Rockies. These journalists and the insiders, they're all like this. This is how it is for everything. Like Newswise will get these vague reports. Sources tell me this, and then it's completely wrong. Remember Arson Judge, or Otani's on a plane to Toronto, type stuff. So you're right. It's the vagueness of this all is so confusing, because what the heck does that mean, Jon Heyman? They might not be, in the running for the new head. Anybody, I might not be in the running. Like, it's so vague where it's news, but it also feels like it's non-news. Okay, they interviewed these guys. These are the candidates we knew of. Maybe there's other candidates we don't know about that the Rockies are still interviewing and giving serious thoughts about. Like, it's hard, I know, for us to talk about it when we're like, we don't have the full picture. We don't know who all has been interviewed, who's in the conversation. We just have these little droplets that have leaked out.
We don't even actually know if Emil Sade and Matt Foreman were finalists.
Yeah.
We know literally nothing confirmed about the situation. It's all been through through vague leaks and sources and all of that stuff.
It's when it's like the random sort of like John Heyman. It's always weird when John Heyman comes out with Rockies news. You're like, who's talking to John Heyman about this stuff? No, when you see Thomas and Patrick come out with stuff, you're like, okay, that's a little more credit to that. Just because we can trust them, we know they're really in that loop. John Heyman has a weird track record, but we can. He's been backed up by Thomas. Yeah, it's hard when we don't have the full picture of who's even in the running. Like, there's a ton of people that may have interviewed that we have no idea about yet. You know, like I haven't told you about my interview with them I had last week because it didn't happen, Evan. It didn't happen. Or did it?
Sources indicate that Skyler Timmons may or may not have interviewed.
Yeah.
And that is like, it is overall a problem in general sports media because there's always lots of sources say or such and such indicates. But I do think it's especially a problem with the Rockies because they are
Yeah.
so insular and so secretive. They wear everything so close to their chest. And that's been a problem with them for several years now, where we don't really hear from them on anything. So we never really know what's going on or what the plan is.
Yeah. It's because there's so many questions that people have had over this past month of when are you going to get somebody? Or what are they going to do? All this stuff, all these pending decisions. And now we have these deadlines of the off season now. The clock is ticking. And we'll talk more about all this stuff in the next segment. But it just it does get frustrating when you just don't know the plan and it's just all muddied water and speculation. And it's like we do every offseason, we just sit and play the waiting game, which isn't fun when you play that every year with the Rockies.
Yeah. And ultimately, for the Rockies, it just leads to extra confusion because, we don't know who's making decisions, what kind of decisions are going to be made before the new head of baseball operations is installed, because there are a lot of the decisions that the Rockies are going to need to make in the next like week or so are pretty easy ones. But then at the same time, there are some other, big question marks, like, what's going to happen with Chris Bryant? What's going to happen to such and such and this? And it's difficult because you feel like there needs to be more of a rush to get this done because the off season has now officially started. Ultimately, though, we are still technically in the timeline that the Rockies allegedly set, which is between or by the end of the World Series and the start of the GM meetings in Vegas on November 10th. At time
Mm-hmm.
of recording, it is November 2nd. But it's more, I think it feels more frustrating because one, it's the Rockies and we know their track record and we're all worried if they are going to screw this up. And two, we're watching other teams around the league start getting all of their new pieces installed in terms of the front office. We've seen people poached. We've seen people get promoted. We've seen things get switched around with other teams. And we're still sitting here with the Rockies going, well, we're waiting. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's it's just frustrating to just not have that clear plan and a clear timeline. Like, again, more vagueness, and that's always then the problem with all of this because the Rockies just work in vagueness. They got to keep the cards close to the chest. They're hunched over their test, but like, dude, you have you have a D minus average in this class. Nobody's trying to cheat off your paper, and, and they just keep doing that. Where it's the secretive. They don't tell anybody anything. No, we hear these little leaks popping out, but then no leaks are always speculative. Maybe it's people that don't have all the information. No, unless the leak's coming from Walker Montford himself, who knows? No, how much stock you can put it in. We don't have all the puzzle pieces to fill out the jigsaw. And that's incredibly frustrating. I know for us as fans, as people covering the team and just waiting for them to do something so we can analyze it and talk about it. It is so blooming frustrating in that aspect
Yeah.
of just being in the dark all the time.
And we're not even asking for like all of the information. Like, we understand that there's probably some stuff you want to keep secret so that, maybe a guy that you're interviewing doesn't get poached out from under you or something like that.
Yeah.
But if instead of getting a leak that says the Rockies plan to announce their person in the next week, it would be nice to actually hear from the Rockies of going, hey, this is from the official Rockies communication channel. We've
Yeah.
interviewed a couple of candidates and we plan to make a decision in this timeline. Just
Yeah.
give us something to work with.
Yeah. Or Walker has one of his interviews with Thomas Harding or Patrick Saunders, and that's where we hear it from, straight from the horse's mouth. But until then, we just have to sit here and wait for constantly checking social media. Okay, is John Heyman, is Patrick Saunders, is Thomas Harding, is Mark Feinstein gonna put something out randomly? And it's annoying. The waiting game is annoying with the Rockies every year. Where I'd much rather play Hungry Hungry Hippos. If you
You know,
know, you know.
I've never actually played Hungry Hungry Hippos.
Then you haven't lived, Evan. You haven't lived.
That's true. That's fair.
You haven't had the thrill of feeding those hungry, hungry hippos those weird little marbles.
Hippos are actually very dangerous creatures.
And they do love eating little plastic marbles.
I mean, who doesn't, though?
I mean, I would die for Moodang.
We haven't had a Moodang update in a while from the internet. I feel like we're overdue.
I remember seeing it. It's a big old hippo now.
I like hippos, but they
It's a
are
grown-up hippo.
scary.
No, I've seen those TikTok videos. They just open their mouth and the person throws in a pumpkin and they chomp on it.
Yeah, they obliterate it with their extremely powerful jaws.
Yeah. Well, as long as I don't put any of my limbs in there, I should be fine.
Or your head, as represented by this watermelon or
This big old
pumpkin.
watermelon or pumpkin. I think the moral of the story here that we're trying to get to, Evan, is that a hippo is a good candidate for the Rockies GM.
I was going to try and tie in some sort of reference to that weird old Christmas song, I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas. But I couldn't come up with anything. So that's up for you, the listener, to decide how that joke goes.
But yeah, we're just still in the dark with everything, and it's annoying. But we just have to trust, I guess, the timeline. Maybe this week, maybe by next week.
I think it's so difficult because you want to trust the process. You want to just wait and see. But because the Rockies have historically screwed up this kind of thing on a pretty regular basis, I think that makes us a lot more antsy when it comes to waiting, because, and we'll discuss this a little bit more in the third segment, but, Skyler, you and I have had this back and forth of, it's okay that they haven't named someone yet versus it's not okay that they haven't named someone yet versus, there doesn't have to be a rush and there really should be a rush. And I think it's just that, we've all been burned so many times before by this organization in the last 7 miserable seasons.
Yeah. And I think people are starting to get a little antsy too, because we can touch on this real quick, because there have been some roster moves that have happened this past week. And it's have a lot of people screaming like, oh, how are they doing these decisions? Who's in charge? Who's making these decisions? When in reality, like, these were 3 pretty easy decisions. IMO, but Dugan Darnell had been placed on outright waivers. He got claimed by the Pirates. And then Lucas Gilbreth and Aaron Schunk had both been outrighted as well. They both elected free agency. So they've opened up 3 spots on the 40-man roster. You've got to add at least Jeff Criswell and Chris Bryant back onto the 40-man, as well as Tyro Estrada, technically. So roster decisions are already having to be made, but you see 3 of these guys get knocked off the roster, and it's had people question, well, how are they doing this? Who's in charge? Type of thing. That probably lends into just the confusion with this GM search, because you're like, well, decisions are having to be made. Who's making those decisions?
Yeah, and the radio silence where the Dugan Darnell being waived, no one had any idea that he was even on waivers until the Pittsburgh Pirates claimed him. And it wasn't until several hours after the Pirates had announced that they had claimed him that the Rockies said that they had waived him, and he had been claimed by the Pirates.
And
And
I'd say Evan too. With waivers are always a weird one. With that is where teams never really say, "Oh, so and so's on waivers." Like the teams know, but the public doesn't always know. But which is weird because I feel like we should.
yeah, and some of these moves even make sense. Like it's difficult because especially operating just looking at Dugan Darnell. Dugan Darnell was one of the very few good stories of a pretty miserable 2025 season. We've talked about him at length here, but moving him does make sense because he's not going to be healthy until after the season starts, and he suffered a pretty significant hip injury that
Yeah.
could affect how he pitches. He's also 28 years old, so he's on the older side for a rookie, and ultimately it does make a modicum of sense for him to be waived off of the 40-man roster, especially if you don't think he's going to be a key contributor to the future of this organization. It's the same with Lucas Gilbreth, who has struggled to stay healthy and find his form after Tommy John surgery, and Aaron Schunk, whom I love Aaron Schunk very much, but the Rockies have really struggled to find a place for him since they drafted him out of Georgia in the second round all those years ago. And so like the moves in a vacuum they make sense, but it's just weird because yes, there are front office personnel, but we don't hear anything about the moves until after they've made, and we don't really know who's making the decisions and what. Because I had been thinking before this morning, and I still have no idea, that it's entirely possible the Rockies had already picked who their candidate was, picked who they wanted to be the guy, but were just waiting to make an announcement until they had everything fully assembled. Now I have no idea.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Now, whether it's like, oh, maybe Walker's just like at the front and it's, maybe Danny Montgomery is the one making these calls or Chris Forbes or,
Mark
you know,
Gustafson.
yeah, any number of those scouts and analytics. Like there's plenty of people for a decision committee because it's pretty easy to look at a stat sheet and say, Lucas Gilbreth, love him. He's a Colorado kid, but he hasn't stayed healthy. We really have no use for him. We need roster space. He's an easy one to go. Same with Aaron Schunk. Dugan, Darnell, for those same reasons you were saying, like, okay, he's injured. No, maybe they try to sneak him back down to AAA, but those stupid Pirates have to swoop in, say, oh, we'll take him. Dirtbags. But unfortunate, but yeah, you need the roster space, and there'll be more roster decisions to come here in the near future. Is that you have to clear space and make room for guys that you want to protect and uh, move on from, and figuring out what to do with some other guys to add them back on from injury and whatnot, which is all info we'll hear more about as we go through the week. But you honestly need to figure out your GM situation, which we'll talk on more, Evan, when we come back here on Affected by Altitude. Segues. Welcome back here to Affected by Altitude, Skyler and Evan, and talking here about the GM. We don't know what's going on there. Who knows when one will get hired, maybe within these 2 weeks, or we could be like the Astros and wait until January.
Or who knows? Maybe they announce it today.
Yeah, right as we're recording. So we both check our phones.
Yeah. As we're recording, or when this episode comes out, maybe
Nothing.
you're listening to it right now and they just announced it 10 minutes ago. Like
Yeah.
we literally have, as we've said multiple times now, no freaking clue if slash when and who this decision will be made for.
One person that commented on Thomas Harding says, turning attention for Fart Mormon. Okay. Fart Moorman, which is just a humorous name. But yeah, figure out the timeline's weird. And Evan, where you had alluded to it before, where we're kind of in these two different mindsets where you're right, there is some urgency to it, but you're maybe a little more, I don't know, anxious for a decision to be made, whereas I'm a little less anxious about a decision being made. And we figured, hey, that's good good content, and so we'll share our pieces. But thoughts on the situation. So take it away, Evan. You
Yeah,
start first.
I've been in the camp for a while now, honestly, since before the season ended, of the Rockies really need to be, not rushing through the search, but operating with some urgency because we're already at the off season. They got a little bit of extra time in the fact that the World Series went to Game 7, honestly, but they're already behind the eight ball of other teams with fully assembled front offices. Other teams are, hiring their managers and getting their coaching staff set up in advance of free agency, in advance of the winter meetings to formulate, the plans of what they want to do. And the longer that the Rockies wait to get their head of baseball operations installed, get their new front office set up, get that new culture going, the less flexibility they have in terms of who they can hire, what they can investigate, and also, the decisions to be made. Because as we discussed, the waivers and stuff, those are some of the smaller decisions. There are some very basic roster moves that need to happen that don't necessarily need a head of baseball operations in terms of deciding on the options for Kyle Farmer and Orlando Arcio and Tyro Estrada, where basically all of those options are going to be probably declined, where, Aramon Marquez is now a free agent, and then we've got to make our Rule 5 protections. And, who we protect, in my opinion, is pretty obvious. It's Gabriel Hughes, it's Wellington Herrera, and probably Sterling Thompson or somebody. But at the same time, there are much more difficult decisions that still need to be made. We have more Chris Bryant drama coming out this week, and ultimately, whoever becomes the head of baseball operations is probably going to need to make a final decision on Chris Bryant, because you know it, and I know it, and almost everybody else knows it, and Chris Bryant probably knows it, but he doesn't want to admit it. He will never wear a uniform on the field during a game ever again. It's pretty clear that that is the case, especially where in a recent interview with Patrick Saunders, he goes, my back pain, my discomfort has now extended outside of baseball activities. It has gotten worse. And, I feel for KB, and, I'm writing about this for my Monday Rock Pile, so check it out. But at the same time, somebody's got to rip that Band-Aid off of the Rockies still have to pay Chris Bryant, no matter what, basically $81 million more dollars. And they need to figure out how that's going to happen without him taking up roster space, because you've got to put him back on the active roster until you can re-put him back on the 60-day IL at some point. And that's honestly, it's a waste of time having to wait for that to happen. And you've got all the other things where you want to really get things moving, where everybody starts wheeling and dealing, where if you want to make trades, if you want to reevaluate the farm system and potentially get some prospects who you're not necessarily high on, but you think you can get to other teams in exchange for prospects you do like, you've got to figure things out. This is a team that has so many question marks. And yes, it is only November 2nd right now, but February 14th, when pitchers and catchers report, is going to be here a lot sooner than you think.
Oh, I was waiting for you to keep going.
I was going to see if you had any comments on that before I kept going. Ultimately, it doesn't have to be a rush. It doesn't need to be, we should have had someone installed 3 days ago, or, we already discussed it, a couple episodes ago of, the Nationals fired their PBO and GM mid-season, and the Rockies probably should have done that, but they didn't, because it would have given them a head start on a search. Okay, fine. But it's so frustrating because we have no idea what the Rockies are doing, that it feels like there is a lack of urgency, and that makes you feel more like they're going to screw it up.
Because they will.
I mean, they entirely might.
I'm not principal of the line, mother.
Overall, what I really think is that, yes, there is still time. The Rockies have that deadline that they allegedly set, where between the end of the World Series and the start of the GM meetings in Vegas, they will have somebody installed. But as the days tick on, and at time of recording, there's only 8 more days till those GM meetings start. The winter meetings, or the GM meetings, next Monday. And the less we know, the less we understand what's going on, the more it feels like if they don't have somebody set in stone, this is our guy, by the time those GM meetings start, by their own alleged self-imposed deadline, there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, the lack of apparent urgency raises so many other questions because of how the Rockies have handled these things in the past. Where what if they're not giving their candidates enough autonomy and they're dropping out? Or what if the candidates are coming in and saying, well, we want to get rid of all these people who are, established Rockies lifers, and the Rockies are going, no, we're not going to let you do that, so you're out of the running. It just, the longer we wait, the less we know, the more concerns are raised. That is why I am frustrated about not having anybody named yet, because I just don't trust this organization to do the right thing until I know they've actually done it.
Yeah. Oh, and those are all good, valid points. And there's a lot of stuff I do agree with you with. And the thing that for me of why I don't feel as anxious about it, where it's like, why haven't they done anything already, and that kind of thing, and like question of why haven't they done this or that yet? And part of it's because those things like you mentioned, where okay, the time, yes, by those GM meetings, you really do need to have somebody in. So we're in the same time frame, but you'll see we've seen the people online. And you see, we're like they're frustrated. Well, who's making baseball decisions? How do you have somebody place? We need to know who's in charge right now making these decisions. But it's like you said, the decisions they have, the immediate ones, are pretty easy. Anybody could make those. Anybody can decline Kyle Farmer's option. That's pretty easy. Uh, and some of these other moves we've seen, they're very simple. But it's as the season off season goes on, the further you go in, yeah, it becomes more problematic, like you said. But the thing I also think about too, and just general of whoever they get this off season, is yeah, February comes up quick, but there is plenty of time with things they need to do. And it's also that mindset of what are people's expectations of what they want this GM to do this offseason? Because in reality, I don't think there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff done. It's going to be some little minor things that's maybe not going to be any different than a normal Rockies offseason that we've had. No, there's not going to be, I don't expect a wholesale roster changes, or at least expect, because a lot of GMs stuff happens when GM meetings and winter meetings, and then it kind of gets frozen out because we'll be waiting for those top tier free agents to sign, and those guys take forever for some reason.
Once again, waiting for Pete Alonso.
Yeah. And so there is that waiting game of the off season that we've all grown accustomed to. And so like our timeline, no, we want feel like there's a lot of immediate things that have to happen right away by the end of November, when really there doesn't have to be a ton of things. And there's a lot of simple things that have to be done that said anybody could make those. But ultimately, like this, we've mentioned before, this is such a monumental decision for the Rockies that I don't want to get bogged down waiting like, oh, well, all these other teams are doing their stuff. Okay, that works for them, but we're the Rockies. We do our own thing. Now, every team has to do what's best for themselves and how they operate. Because when you start chasing what everybody else is doing, that's when the mistakes are made a lot of the time, and especially with personnel decisions, I would say. So when you're constantly trying to chase others, well, so and so, and keeping up with the Joneses, yeah, we'd all like to be like the Dodgers. And when it comes to keeping up with money and roster and players, that'd be nice. But with front offices, they all kind of pay attention to themselves and kind of their own method that they want to do. So I would rather the Rockies take the time and make sure they get somebody in place who's got the vision and a cohesive plan to work with them than just kind of a reactionary move. Oh, well, the Cardinals are doing this with their front office guys. Pirates are doing this. We better make sure we do something right now, too. And then we're stuck with a guy who just blows up this roster and does terribly, type of thing. But you've got to have that urgency, like you said. Smart urgency, but not reactionary urgency.
Yeah.
Like proactive urgency, so to speak.
I mean, I think ultimately where I'm looking for urgency is not for them to come in right now and make a bunch of decisions right now. But
Yeah.
the longer someone is in place and has the tools at their disposal to start evaluating and
Yeah.
start making decisions, like I'm not asking for him to come in tomorrow and immediately blow up the roster.
But I'm sure there are people who are.
Oh, absolutely. But what I want more than anything else is for someone to have the time to get their footing underneath them
Yeah.
before all the other deadlines start hitting, before you've got to start making decisions. And you can go, all right, well, we've given them the time and tools and autonomy to figure out what it is they want to do. Because my whole thing, and I've written about it, we've talked about it here, is not that I want them to come in and make immediate wholesale changes. It's that the first thing that needs to happen is a top to bottom evaluation of basically every part of the team.
Yeah.
And the sooner that someone is installed, the sooner they can start doing that.
Yeah. And I think for me too is kind of the saying is that this isn't going to be a new GM isn't going to be the immediate problem solve and we're going to do everything, revamp the entire front office till they see they get this guy. And then 2026 is that evaluation process, like you talked about this off season, the regular season. And then, of course, there'll be the lockout in 27. So they have plenty of time to evaluate then. But, where pieces start going, we're trying to get the top guy in, and then he's going to have his time working with the old guard before starting to implement more and more of the new guard type of thing. Like, I think this is going to be a lot longer process than maybe any of us want it to be, or even if some maybe expect it to be, especially folks that are obviously frustrated with the Rockies. Because you're right, they should have started this process back in July. Like Bill Schmidt should have been gone a long time ago, and they could have been way ahead of the curve, and we wouldn't be having these conversations right now. Who knows? Maybe we probably would have. But I don't know. I'm gonna put some blind trust. It's probably not earned into Walker Monfort because it's felt like they have made some huge strides. We would clown on the Rockies a lot, but Walker has made some strides. They made some front office strides in 25 by firing Bud Black and firing some coaching, moving that around, and then relieving Bill Schmidt of his duties and whatnot.
But it
Like
was a mutual parting of ways.
they fired him.
Yeah.
Uh, Same with Jeff Bridich. He did not mutually agree to part with. No, they fired him. But it's like they're a little baby that's taken some steps. I'm not going to get mad at them and call them a stupid baby because they fell over while taking their first steps.
I will.
Like we got to be a little patient with them and put some hope that okay, you're learning. Hopefully, you can get this right.
But Skyler,
And then we'll
stupid
come play
babies
later.
often need the most attention.
It's true, they do. But it's like it would be nice to have somebody in place and have the plan all laid out and for them to hit the ground running. But yeah, it's like they have to get this right. And if it's going to be on their timetable, okay. We're not going to like it, but if that's what has to happen to get the right guy, okay, I'll deal with it.
And where I do agree with you on that is, like, let's be honest, nobody should be expecting the Rockies to be any good in 2026.
Yeah.
A front office change isn't going to immediately make this team not suck in 2026. They're going to be bad. They're probably going to lose 100 or more games again because what ultimately needs to be done is a complete teardown of the entire
Yeah.
team, front office, roster, everybody, of trying to figure stuff out. And that's not a quick and painless process.
Yeah.
It's going to be ugly, it's going to be weird, and it's going to be messy. What I do worry about, though, is that they potentially use the looming 2027 lockout as a reason to be a little bit less urgent of, well, we're not playing much of 2027 anyway, so we have more time to figure things out for 2028. That
Yeah.
does worry me a little bit.
Yeah. But it's all going to be a process. And hopefully, if somebody's listening to this and they thought, and they're in that camp, because I think we're both of that understanding, like there needs to be some urgency, but yeah, this isn't going to be immediate changes and fix everything. We're going to win the World Series in 27 or in 26. No, that's not happening. This is the first step to an actual, retooling, rebuild, whatever it is. Now, could a guy come in and do the opposite of everything we're saying? Yes, he could come in and just completely overhaul this roster and fix it, and they're competitive. I'd welcome that. I do it in MLB show and out of the park baseball all the time.
Yeah, we're not going to sign Bo Bichette and a bunch of
Yes, we are. That's
other
my first move.
expensive free agents and, sell the farm and go immediately to try and wrench open a contention window.
But we could.
But arguably, they shouldn't.
Yes. Here's one of my GM ideas, Evan, that I thought about. You go to Chris Bryant and you say, hey, we need this 40-man roster spot. What if we outright you to AAA? You accept the outright assignment, so you're off the roster and you can continue to rehab here with the organization. Would that work? Is that possible?
I don't think his ego allows it. And I'm
No,
not
it
trying to
wouldn't.
say that he's some
It wouldn't
egotistical
happen.
player, but ultimately what needs to happen with Chris Bryant, and this is a topic for another day, is the Rockies and their lawyers and KB and his agent and lawyers need to sit down and figure out some sort of deferred payment schedule or settlement, because
Yeah.
we know that KB wants his money. Of course he does. He's entitled to it, and no matter what happens, he's going to get paid. But we also need KB to accept, as painful as it is, that he's not ever going to play again, or rather, it's extremely unlikely. And the fact that until he figures that out or makes a decision, he is a shackle
Mhm.
around the wrists of this organization and holding them back from being able to do things with that roster space or with money that he's owed.
Yeah. It's all a messy situation. So like you've got to take your time, find the right guy who can head the shop. But like we said, by those GM meetings, because that's really I think when a lot of teams the off season officially starts for really everything is when those GMs, the owners meeting in November happens, and that kind of kicks it off because that's when you need your guy in place who can then start networking with the other owners, the other GMs, start spitballing some deals and ideas. And I think that's the spot when you truly need somebody in place.
Yeah, especially because these deadlines are going to start coming pretty quick here.
Yeah,
They've already
after that one.
started with the off season starting, and just as a quick run through while we wrap things up here, today, November 2nd, is when free agency officially begins for eligible players. They no longer account against 40-man rosters. Like we said, Herman Marquez is now a free agent. He is off the 40-man roster. Also, potentially today, Gold Glove winners announced. That's pretty neat.
Hey,
And then we'll have November 6th is when free agents are now eligible to sign with any team, the official beginning of free agency. It is also the deadline for options and opt-outs to be decided on, and the deadline of whether they are going to issue any qualifying offers. Now, like we said previously, those decisions are easy. Those options and opt-out clauses are really easy for the Rockies to make, and there is pretty much no one on this roster that the Rockies would want to make a qualifying offer to. Great. November 6th and 7th, we'll get Silver Slugger winners announced. Cool. Go Hunter Goodman, who is the finalist for National League catcher. And then, like we've said, it's that November 10th GM meeting in Vegas. When those start, that's when we've got to start having things ready to go, because within a week of that, we've got all the awards coming out. We've got decisions on qualifying offers. We've got the Rule 5 40-man protection deadline. And then we roll into the owners' meetings, non-tender deadlines, and winter meetings on December 7th. So from the second or third week of November into the beginning of December, things are going to be moving quick.
yeah, yeah, because it's kind of the sprint until probably like the Rule 5 draft, and then after that, that's when it slows down and then becomes the slow off-season holiday stuff
Yeah.
where a lot of stuff doesn't happen.
On December 9th is the draft lottery, as we've already discussed. The Rockies, also the Nationals and Angels, are not allowed to pick higher than 10th. So that stinks, but whatever. And then December 10th is the Rule 5 draft, and December 15th closes the international free agent signing period for amateurs. This does not include posted players. This is, guys who you're picking up from Venezuela, the Dominican Republic. You're really young guys that you're adding to the team. After that, things slow down. Where, in January is when arbitration stuff starts, but we all know how slow that can be. And then things are just going to kind of slowly rumble along until it's time for spring training to start.
And the World Baseball Classic. That'll be fun.
That will be fun. I am looking forward to the World Baseball Classic.
We'll have the Olympics to watch in February. People can realize Peacock is a thing.
Again. We realize Peacock is a thing, then we forget until the next thing we have to use it for happens.
And then they jack up the prices. That's the American way.
Yeehaw.
It is the British way. Yeah, we'll see. Again, we'll hopefully have more news maybe to talk about next time. Maybe we'll have a GM in place that time. If not, it's going to be me. It's going to be May.
It's not going to be May. It's going to be
First
November.
move, I'm going to sign Evan Lang to a 7-year, $182 million contract. Can't do any worse than Chris Bryant.
Here comes the money.
Evan Lang battling a back injury, but he did put up 20 home runs in his 173 games that he played.
I mean, just give me money, and then I will immediately get hurt because I'm a doughy, out of shape guy in my mid-30s. And I will have contributed about as much as Chris Bryant has over the last 4 seasons.
Hey, that'll work.
If anything,
stop answering our phone calls.
I'd have done better because I'd be sitting at a nice 0.0 wins above replacement as compared to Chris Bryant's negative 1.6.
There you go. Evan, where can the folks find you?
You can find me over on Blue Sky at evanlang27.bsky.social. Love to hear from you. Baseball Blue Sky has been really hopping during this World Series. It shows the potential that I think this platform has for being a good baseball conversation space. You can also find me over on Purple Row writing the Monday Rock Piles and the Tuesday Pebble Reports, though we are actually nearing the end of the Arizona Fall League. We're getting there over the next couple of weeks, but that'll keep going for as long as that's going. Remember that you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on all of your favorite podcasting platforms of choice: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. If it's got podcasts, we're probably on there. You can also catch the video version of the show over on youtube.com, and you can find us on all of your favorite social media platforms of choice, including YouTube, at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop.
Nice. Find me over on Twitter at Skyler Timmons or on Blue Sky, stimmons13, WSKY.social, and write Wednesday Rock Piles for purplerow.com. Fun stuff. But that'll do it here for this edition of Affected by Altitude. As always, we appreciate you tuning in. Stay tuned. Sometime this month, we'll have the Affected by Altitude Awards.
Probably.
Most likely. We'll figure it out. But stay tuned. Until next time, I'm Skyler. That's Evan. Hit him with it.
Farewell.
This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.